Thank you. And again, thanks for the opportunity today to dig into some of these issues, including a good dialogue you just had with Senator Scott. There's so much that needs to be done to tighten up our defenses and respond more effectively. But one is this reporting requirements legislation we talked about earlier, and we would like to get legislation passed that is bipartisan that you all can work with. And the bottom line is it would require entities to report to you, Ms. Easterly, in a more expedited fashion, and in some cases, just clarifying that that's a responsibility, because it's not, as we saw with Colonial Pipelines when they got the FBI and didn't contact you based on our hearing testimony. So for you to be able to properly disseminate that information that you get to the right agencies, and therefore to have the right analysis, I suppose you need to do that. What do you need? In other words, if we have a reporting requirement, what do you need to make it effective so that CISA can take that information and get it out immediately to the right actors?
Thanks for the question, Senator. Well, that's what we do every day. We receive a variety of reports across the federal civilian executive branch. We receive a variety of reports at the state and local level, and then, of course, at critical infrastructure. And we analyze those reports to ensure that if there is information that needs to be shared with other entities to help us raise the cybersecurity baseline of the cyber ecosystem, that we are doing that. That really is what I describe as our superpower, is to share that information. And the authorities that we were given by the Congress to do that, I think, are exactly what we need. If this legislation goes into place, and I'm a huge supporter of it, and I think, as I said earlier, we need to craft it in such a way that it enables enforcement, it is timely, but we're going to need to put in place process to be able to handle this information at even greater scale and make sure that we can share it as agilely as possible. I think that the JCDC that we're standing up will help enable that, because, again, that gives a construct to share many to many. Uniquely, it is the only federal cyber entity in statute that brings together NSA, FBI, CISA, Cybercom, DoD, ODNI, with the private sector so that we can share that many to many. That's the DOTS visibility issue that we're trying to solve, Ranking Member Portman, and I'm optimistic that we'll be able to leverage any new legislation to share that information as agilely as possible.
Well, I appreciate that. My colleagues want to ask some additional questions. I want to make sure they get the chance to. We'll have more follow-up on this as we move the legislation through the process, but we want your input. We want to make sure that this works right and doesn't unduly burden those who get hacked at a time when they have to be able to respond. So that's why there's a time period here to give them time where they're not filling out paperwork, but they're in fact, addressing the attack. So there's a balance there. We understand that. But ultimately, we want to have a reporting requirement, and we want to make sure that you have the resources to be able to properly take that information and get it out to the right federal agencies and others as quickly as possible.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
Totally agree with you. I mean, we went through this in the private sector at Morgan Stanley. What we don't want is to have CISA overburdened with erroneous reporting, and we don't want to burden a company under duress when they're trying to actually manage a live incident. And that's why I think the rulemaking process that will be consultative with industry will really be important to getting this right. We don't want to be flooded with reports saying we detected something. We're not sure whether there's actual impact or not. I think we need to make sure that there's determined impact, and then we can get that information and we can do something with it that will help ensure the cybersecurity baseline is raised. But erroneous noise is not what we need. We need signal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You noted that at the outset we introduced into the record letters we've received from the private sector, and I think you'll see in some of that information the input that you're talking about. And it's a balance, and we'll try to achieve that balance, but also provide some discretion so that we get it right. We look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.